art is for all abilities. Like, we have kids who are on the autism spectrum, we have people with Down syndrome. Like, there are no limitations when you come into the art room. Like, you can create, and I think that that's really why it's such a passion for me. So we are we're pretty active on Facebook. I've grown my followers from like 600 to 700 to almost 1,000 just during this quarantine. And then I started a private Facebook group that I'm doing the private art or the free tutorials on, and I have almost 800 on that. And that happened organically in like 72 hours. It was insane.
That's really cool.
And then I have my personal Instagram, which I promote sometimes on, but then I have one called Art Teacher Life. Because I've done a shift, like a rebrand. I used to be in downtown Lake Summit in a gallery. And so Instagram doesn't let you merge accounts. So I kept that one as my kind of Art Teacher Life one, and the people who follow me there. And then I wanted to brand an Instagram page for our new business. So I have Kreeayt Art Studio on Instagram. And those are really our primary tools for social media, Instagram. But my daughter is 17, and she is trying to convince me that we need to be on TikTok. So we'll see.
So what do you do? What do you do? And we can get into a little bit more, but like specifically when you put things out there, you're saying you're offering like free workshops and things like that. Like, what else? What does the content look like?
If I look at that kind of behind the scenes in my role as an instructor, so I'll share stuff like student spotlights. I'll share like me prepping for classes, that kind of content. I on the Kreeayt Art Studio, mostly what I'm posting there is like still images of the finished product, of parties that have happened or decorations, that kind of stuff. And then I will do on our story, I'll get on there and share like if I have an upcoming class that I need to fill seats in, or if there's something new and exciting happening. So I just kind of use them I look at them as two different tools. Like, people who want to know more personally about me and my connection to the business is the one, and then the other one is more the business's brand.
For sure. And you can, it's okay to cross promote and do those things. I think, I think
and it happens organically anyways, because right now, when I was in Lee Summit, I had a staff of 8, and now it's just me and my daughter. So I am the teacher, I am the studio at this point. So it's like crossing over, but I look at it, and as we grow and as I bring on staff, I will let them have access to the Kreeayt Art Studio as content creators. And then I will still just be at Art Teacher Life. So for people who want to follow me and just like the things that I'm doing, that's going to continue to be aligned with me as an instructor. And I look at Art Teacher Life can carry over into if I go a different direction, and that also I post there. I freelance and teach for like co-ops and stuff. So I post that content there that's not directly related to the studio.
That's really cool. I think that's a good way to just touch on two different, places and kind of come at it from different angles and just see what lands. I mean, it's all trial and error anyway, so.
Right. I started 10 years ago, and it is a whole different world.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. But it can be very intimidating, but it can also, once you understand like the scope of your reach and how much you can actually go out and connect with people, I think it isn't as scary. I talk, because I do digital marketing, so I actually talk to people a lot about this. And one of the biggest misconceptions is like, I think social media gets this rap like it's some other entity that we don't have control. Like, social media is just a communication platform. So if you were going to go have a conversation with 10 people face to face, do it the same way on social media. Like, have a conversation.
My daughter's 17, and she laughs at me. She's like, "That sounds so dorky." I'm like, I am dorky. Like, it is what it is. And part of my role as a gallery director when I was in a gallery setting before was helping artists, because artists have the biggest struggle with understanding the business of being artists, and that includes marketing and promoting themselves. And I'm like, the best thing you can do is be true to who you are. Like, don't try to be somebody else, just be true to who you are. And the adage, like, people buy from those they know, like, and trust, which is why I felt like during this time, especially, I wanted to be out there in the community and offering content that had value to people for where they were. And the first thing I felt as a parent, like, what am I going to do to entertain my kids? Like, what are we going to do? And especially in the beginning, it was rainy and like kind of icky outside. And so I was like, the tool I have that I can help people is art. And so that's when I jumped online and started doing the free tutorials.
That's really cool. Yeah. So are you doing them live or are you doing them?
Yeah. So I had created a page. I have been tossing around the idea with going virtually with these classes forever. So my cousins are homeschoolers in Texas, and back when her kids were younger, they're both in high school now, she was like, there is such an audience for what you teach. I wish we lived closer to you. We would totally come to you. And I just didn't know how to figure out the logistics, and I didn't feel like I could provide the same value not being there with them in person. But then this whole situation kind of threw us into it, and it forced us to figure it out. And so now I had this class called Creative Kids that I set up the private Facebook group just in hoping that, and planning for the future, like if I ever want to take it virtual beyond this local demographic, I have that page there. The page sat stagnant for almost a year. And then I'm like, okay, the page is already there. I already have it branded to me. I'm just going to go ahead and use that and like just go out into these groups that I'm in and say, hey, I'm offering this if you'd like to take advantage of it. And I'm telling you, like, my husband was sitting in the chair across from me and we were just approving because we keep it private because kids are posting their pictures of themselves. And so I just want to keep it secure and private. So before I accept somebody into the page, I want to make sure that it's a family with children. And so we're approving, and he's just like, how many people? And like the first night it was over 300.
Wow.
And that's not like 24-hour night. That's like in a couple hours from the first time I launched it. Yeah.
Really cool.
So, and I just go live on Facebook at 2:00. I was doing every day, but I find now that the weather's nicer, people are getting out and doing yard work on the weekends or whatever. So I'm just going Monday through Friday, and I leave the videos out there. My content was very raw and awful. Now I figured out how to use my cell phone as a desktop camera, and I can go on Zoom, and they can so I've got all, like, I'm like figuring out the technology as you go. It's so funny because I like signed up for all these webinars as a business owner, and that's what people were saying, just do it, just launch the program, you'll figure it out as you go. And the planner in me wouldn't let me do that. And so now I'm like, okay, we're gonna figure it out as we go. And I mean, the videos have improved, like everything's improved along the way. And if nothing else, this has paved the way for me to be able to have a broader audience and be able to offer these classes.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, you know, it really, I think a lot of people fall into that category of, I want to put stuff out there, but I'm just worried about how it's going to look initially, and I don't want it to look unprofessional. And what ends up happening is you talk yourself out of it. And like what you're experiencing now is what happens if you just go through it and do it. The first few are crappy, and there's glitches, and there's things that don't look good, and then you start to figure out things. But the two things that come away from it are, if you learn because you're doing it, but also you feel like at least there's momentum now, and then the consistency of you doing something starts to build on itself. And now, you know, a couple weeks in, you're like, it doesn't even matter if it's not as good, because at least you're consistently putting stuff out. So,
well, and the one thing is, like, you know, we have YouTube, we have all kinds of things out there. People can find tutorials if they wanted to go out and look. But these kids have known me. Like, a lot of them have grown up. I've been teaching in the community for 10 years. And so they're used to my teaching style. And so I was always like, well, if they wanted an online service or an online class, there's places they can find it. But really, people want to support their local, and that's why I like what you're doing, because they want to know how they can support these businesses that they have been going to for years, and make sure that they're able to like sustain over this period of time that we're not able to be in our brick and mortar locations. And so the one thing that really pushed me forward is my first video had 180 views, and I'm like, oh my gosh, people really want to see this.
That's really cool. That's a feeling, and then you're motivated to do more. it's you touched on an important point that this shutdown, what to me it's really highlighted is that, you know, in the last 10 years we've really gone away from shopping at the stores and so we've really moved into this e-commerce. But this experience has really brought out that nostalgia for like local businesses matter, even if it's not some place you go to every single day, or even if it's, you know, not. I think a lot of times we don't even realize how much we actually rely on local business because we don't think about it because it's there. But when it's taken away, you realize, whoa, like I need these things in my life. I really, you know, Amazon can't just do everything for me.
It's that that one-on-one that a small business owner understands the value of, and you're not going to get that going out to some big chain or a global service.
Yeah, and I think local small businesses are in the habit of nurturing relationships, whereas big global brands are in the habit of growing numbers. And so, you know, they both need to exist and they both have their value. But I think this has really highlighted that the local small businesses are not going away. They are definitely the backbone of America. Tell me a little bit about your own background. Like, how did you, like, just about yourself?
Yeah, so from the time I was a little bitty girl, I would say the first time my parents said they asked was like kindergarten, first grade-ish, what I wanted to be. I wanted to be an artist and an art teacher.
Yeah.
And I thought and I thought as I got older as an artist and somebody who wanted to be creative, that teaching art was really the only way to have a revenue stream. You know, they always said starving artist, and I'm like, I don't want to be one of those people, you know. And so I, you know, my dad was actually a cartoonist with Army Times when he was in the military and drew little cartoons. So when I was real little, like we would sit around and just draw little cartoony things, and I just loved drawing. And then, you know, if you do something a lot, if you practice a lot, people tell you you're good at it. And so then when you start getting told you're good at something in school, then that reinforces you wanting to do that. And I think the thing that I wanted to be able to do is to reinforce it for everybody. Like, I think it's so important for people to have that outlet. So I went through high school with the plan of going on to be an art educator. I went to college at UCM. It was CMSU back then, and art ed major. Got all the way through to my senior year. And during that time, Warrensburg isn't super far away, but their bookstore wasn't the greatest about keeping inventory in stock that the students need. Yeah. So professors would be like, oh, we have this project, you're going to need blah, 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 blah for tomorrow. And if they didn't have it at the bookstore, we were hauling all the way downtown to Westport to the art supply store to get stuff. And so I was just like, you know, there's a need. They need another source here in this community for art supplies. I opened an art supply business when I was 21 years old. Wow. I had scheduled a summer semester abroad. I studied London over the course of like June through August, and then came back before school started from like August 1st to August 17th and opened a business. Like, registered a business, found a retail space, ordered inventory, and opened before school started. And that was my kind of launch into entrepreneurship. During the time there, Warrensburg is kind of out in the middle of nowhere, really. It's a college town, but there's also a military base. And where you have a military base, you tend to have a lot of homeschoolers. And so people were coming to me looking for art classes, like adults and children, but a lot of homeschoolers. And so I started teaching art classes privately and in small groups through my business. And I had an aha moment. I'm like, I don't want to go to be an art teacher in a public school. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to have control over what my life looks like, how I teach, my income, as most entrepreneurs want to have control over. So my senior year of college, I didn't want to leave my brand new business to go do my student teaching block. So I changed my major to a Bachelor of Fine Arts.
Wow.
And I had that business for like 4-ish years. Met my husband who'd been in the military, got married, had kids, ended up moving away for a promotion for him. So that business ended up closing. I ended up closing it, not because it wasn't doing well, but we tried commuting and all kinds of craziness. It was 2 hours away, so it just wasn't feasible. And eventually, as you know, for our family, I chose to do that. Kind of went into the corporate world for a brief stint, 5 years, And I tell you, that was probably the roughest time for my mental health in my entire life. I am not built for corporate world.
Yeah.
If I see a problem, I want to be able to fix it. I want to be able to meet the needs of customers. I want to be able to resolve issues and just be in control of in control of the experience that people have when they're working with me. So when we moved back to the Kansas City area, I still worked for that corporate company and took a severance package and was able to really go back and pursue what I wanted to do, and jumped in and met a group of people and started teaching art classes inside of a gallery space in Lee Summit. I started with $20 in supplies, and grew that into a business that was, doing very well, and ended up having a staff of 7 to 8 people most of the time. Over some time, that partnership just wasn't working out, so I decided that it was in the best interest of all parties involved for me to spin away. Their focus was wanting to be more on the gallery component and selling art. My passion is teaching kids and teaching, and so I wanted to save what I had been building for 10 years and spin away, and that's how Kreeayt was launched.
Wow.
I started Kreeayt full-time last year, 1 year ago this month.
Wow.
So and so it's and then we partnered with another business in Blue Springs, and we started teaching classes and rented some studio space inside to Jazz Dance Studio. That was a great way for me to really bootstrap this business again and be able to grow it organically, which was wonderful. The response from the community was fantastic. I actually had just signed a new lease in February or March, and I was supposed to move into our brand new studio April 1st. So,
are you still planning on that?
That's the plan. Yeah, I'm hoping. My hope and my big hope is that May 15th we come out of this, and they say Jackson County goes to 10 people or less. From May 15th to June 1st, we can move into our new space, and then the first week of June we can start launching our summer camps. Okay. That's an ideal scenario.
That's the perfect. Yeah, I'm hoping that's where we go as well. So you talked a little bit about summer camps and those different things. Go more in depth on the types of services and products that you actually offer.
So my big tagline, I guess, is we are an art studio for all ages. And the reason I love working with kids, I love fostering that passion, but I also love an adult who has told themselves for so long that they couldn't do it, watching them and showing them that yes, they can. My philosophy is we were drawing on cave walls before we had written word. Art is a natural outlet for people, and I think in a moment of crisis like we're seeing now, people are really realizing the depth of that. And it doesn't have to be fine art, drawing, visual arts. It could be music, playing an instrument. People are picking up instruments they haven't touched in ages and dusting them off because it brings us peace. It's therapeutic. It's calming. I mean, there's just the data is out there to support that. So we teach kids classes. I do homeschool classes. We do after school art programming for ages 5 and up. We do mommy and me classes. We do social painting classes, which is like the guided, that most of the places do, like wine and paints. We do private parties. We do team builders. I actually last year just completed my therapeutic art life coaching certificate. And so I hosted a free class the other day that was called Therapeutic Art Affirmation Trees. Oh, wow. And it was just a class to just kind of like ground people and do something kind of calming and reflective during this time. So really all ranges of classes. I mean, as far as visual arts are gonna,
That's quite a spectrum. What's sort of your do you have like a bread and butter? You said the summer camps, right?
Summer camps in the summer, and then like children's birthday parties and private parties. My big thing is art is important, and a lot of times the kids that need to be in seats in my class aren't always parents that have a huge disposable income. So I try to keep the pricing affordable for as many people as possible. So monthly tuition is around $50 a month, and that includes all supplies for our after school programming, and that is meeting 1 day a week for an hour. So it's going to compare to like dance, dance or karate or, things like that. So, obviously that's not a huge income driver for us, but summer camps, being a longer based class, and it's fulfilling more of like, not a daycare role, but really it's serving a purpose for providing some place for kids to go while parents are still working and they're out of school. And then birthday parties, private art parties, and team builders, those kind of things are more of the revenue drivers that have more of a profit margin for us.
That makes sense. So you've kind of structured it to where you can give back a little bit.
Yeah. We also do fundraisers. So we partner with the local animal rescues and do Pop Art Your Pet paint nights. And those fundraisers, $15 of every ticket goes back to the hosting animal rescue. So the tickets sell for $45. And if you look at like, I don't know, the chain stores that do the wine and paints, $45 is really just a typical ticket rate. But we're able to give $15 of those tickets, that ticket revenue back to that organization to do good in the community. And then also offering up scholarship seats as we grow. That's a huge, my goal is 10% of the after school programming will be kids that are there on a scholarship.
That's really cool. So, have you thought about doing like an endowment for the scholarships?
Yeah, so I thought, so art is tricky because like I could have registered this as a 501c3. We're an art studio. We meet all of the criteria. The process, legalities behind the process are a little bit daunting, but this business model ran under a 501c3 before. So my husband and I have talked, like we hope as we grow as a business that we can develop a fund. And so when organizations want to come in, then they can tap into that fund, basically write an application to us to cover cost of things. So some of the things that we do is I partner with like assisted living facilities, and I go in and teach classes there. And when I do those, basically I'm just making sure that the supplies are covered and maybe a little bit of cost of my time to go out. We do field trips for daycares. I'm hoping to get field trips with schools. We work with church youth groups. One of the things that I did as a brand new business is we just offered those things for free. Kids could come in and experience it. Reaching out to the community and letting them just get a taste of what we offer, building some credibility in our community and letting people know that, I'm not here for the money. I have to have an income, but I'm here to provide a service to my community.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I can tell the passion from just talking.
Yeah.
So what, obviously we've all been affected by this in one way or another by this shutdown. So touch on what you've done differently, especially in the marketing side since the shutdown, and how you think it'll affect you going forward.
Yeah, so the first week I was just kind of in shock and just kind of like set with my emotions for a little while to try to figure out what it looked like for me, because I had literally just signed a new lease. And was supposed to move in, and my basement and garage are full of my business at this point. So I don't even have like a place I can sit and think about longingly that I want to be in. It doesn't exist. Just the timing didn't work that way. Or I don't have a address where people could come pick up supplies or do doorstep stuff. So I'm like, okay, Teresa, you're an entrepreneur. Sometimes you have to pivot. Sometimes you have to change. Like what can you do? And like I mentioned earlier, talking with you is, kids needed something to do. Kids needed something to get their mind off the fact that, their buses left and they weren't going back. Yeah. I'm sorry, it makes me a little emotional, but it's hard. Like kids were scared. Yeah. And so art heals. So I started teaching kids art for free, and they flocked to the page. Parents started doing art with their kids. They shared the pictures of the art, and that just brought me so much peace and so much joy. I feel like a sap. but it truly did. Like,
that's awesome.
it truly did. And at that time, there wasn't a lot of feedback from the schools. Like, the schools didn't know what they were going to do. They didn't know that how they were going to educate the kids, and so kids were just at home, just kind of hanging out, like in limbo after spring break. And so at that point, I was like, this is awesome. I can do this every day. But then I was like, I'm a business. I have to figure out how to, you know, go forward. Like, I'm going to have to pay bills and rent and keep my business afloat. So I decided that I was just going to start doing online classes, and I put my first class out there. Kids were already scheduled to come take my drawing class. They were planning on coming and taking it in person. So I just shot a quick email to parents and said, hey, would you be willing to do this virtually? And majority of them were. It's a small class, but I was like, I'm going to try it. And it started 2 Mondays ago, and it was a huge hit. And honestly, seeing their faces and being able to communicate with me, I mean, obviously there's a computer between us, but it's as close as we could get to teaching classes in person. The technology is amazing that we have right now. And so I'm going to be launching more later this week classes. And then I've started seeing parents post, you know, it's my kid's birthday, it's double digits. We're so excited about a big birthday party or this, that, or the other. And a lot of parents, maybe they're doing Zoom, maybe they aren't. Some parents are technologically savvy, some are not. So I'm going to be launching Zoom birthday parties. And so basically we'll set all the logistics up, create the link, you send it out to as many people as you want to. And for 45 minutes to an hour, I will guide everybody that you invite through a project of the birthday, boy or girl's choice. Even grandmas can click on a link and join if they didn't know how to set up a Zoom call. And then everybody can sing happy birthday, and we can go off, you know, line. And for a little bit of time, there can be some norm.
Really cool.
Yeah, so
Can I give you a piece of advice?
Yeah.
Maybe you want to ask, but I would record those on YouTube and tell the people in it, you know, hey, I'm recording this. I'm not gonna, if you guys don't want to be featured, I won't show you, you know, if it's kids. But it's great for down the road, just good content. You know, it's
right,
because you're already doing it, and Zoom has a nice feature where it records calls automatic, like if you just click. I've been doing that with a lot of things, and then you can cut that up and use it in different ways. And you know, it's you talking and teaching, or it's you actually showcasing another child. But just something that I think I've been advising a lot of people to do is just start recording stuff you're already doing, because you're doing it.
Yeah. And I was thinking about, like, I have 18 or 19 videos now that I've recorded, that I have saved on my page that are live videos. And I downloaded one the other day and was going to play with it, because I mean, I have content for a YouTube channel, and I was like, I could literally save these videos, and then I could host virtual classes that aren't live. They'd just be pre-recorded classes.
You can create an entire workshop because you're already doing the work now. Then you can kind of cut it up a little bit, maybe make it into, you know, chapters or whatever type of structure you want, and you could upload it to YouTube. You could even, way down the road, if you get enough content, you could actually monetize it by selling it as like a package for, here's my introductory art class, and you have chapters that you. So
I'm actually registered on Udemy and Teachable and some of those other classes, because I was playing around with all of them, trying to figure out where the best place would be to go virtually for content. And honestly, like, a private Facebook group with Zoom seems to be the easiest solution. I'm also using Google Classroom with my secondary art kids, because then they can upload their images onto there, so I can give them grades, because in one particular class I still have to grade their work. So that, just figuring it out by trial and error. You don't necessarily have to pay for some like online platform once we've got this figured out, the technology.
There's a lot of tools for small businesses right now that are free or nearly free that could dramatically increase their reach. Just because, as I said before, if you're a real estate person and you're just on a phone call giving advice about real estate, like, that's content. If you are creating content, if you record that, for you, you're making art, you're teaching how to make art. That's, you know, multiply that into more things down the road, whether you use it tomorrow or in a year. I think you're in the right path though for trying to find, you know, other ways to use what you're already doing. But that, yeah, I think this is a time of opportunity for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, never in my life have I had so much spare time, you know, to try to practice. They like all of sports activities and church activities are canceled. So my biggest thing is I don't want to bite off more than I can chew once business doors open back up. And I see a lot of people like they're signing up for Snapchat and TikTok and LinkedIn and like all the things.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I have found in being in business in 10 years is only do what you can manage well, because it's better to have limited social media exposure managed well than like be on all the things not managed well.
Exactly. Yeah. And it can be tempting to go across and hit up all of your channels, but I've definitely found that the companies that do one or two well and consistently are the ones that are going to see the results versus having sporadically, you know, sporadic content across 5 or 6 of them. Now, if you can get to a point where you can hire somebody to do it full time, of course, that's
right.
ideal.
Right. Well, and I think the biggest mistake is just like sharing on all the things the same, like posting the same thing on Facebook that you're posting on Instagram and just always having it be shared across all those platforms, because each of them has their own purpose.
Yeah, purpose and one
Audience.
thing that's audience, and also obviously the audience is different, the purpose of the platform is different, but also I think of it as like TV. That when you're on when I'm on CNBC, I'm thinking about, you know, learning information about finances, or, you know, or I'm MSNBC Money or whatever. If I'm on the HGTV channel, I want to watch something that's gardening, house oriented. If I'm on, you know, something else. So I think of it that way. Like people going on Facebook are usually trying to just, you know, they're just catching up on things. They might interact a little bit. People on Instagram are very visually oriented. Same with Pinterest. You know, on LinkedIn, it's all about business to business and really connecting. So I think tapping into that and understanding why that person is there is really, really important. So that's really good that you've had that recognition, because I think a lot of people struggle with that. And they do just kind of, it's easy to just say, hey, share, you know, share to Facebook, share to this. But if you just take a little bit of time, you can take a 20-minute art demo and make 55 different pieces of content with it contextualized to different platforms depending on, you know, what your business is. So
right.
Yeah, it does. I think it takes some time in the beginning to understand it and to just get your hands dirty, but it's not as complicated as I think people, or at least as it seems in the beginning. Just like anything, right? When you first start something, you're like super scared of it. And then,
yeah. Well, and I think that the thing that makes it simplest is being authentic. Like, I think that's, if you're authentic to who you are, it's easy to create content, you know, because you're just being you. It's the people who are trying to have this persona of something out there that find it more difficult to create content, because it gets cloudy as to like who am I putting out there in front of people?
And you have to like tailor everything to match what you've been doing. Whereas if you're just being you, and even the mistakes that you're making are out there, I think, you know, that's what it's about. And that's really cool. So, speaking of connecting in the community, what are some ways that we as a small business community, as Kansas City community, can do to help you guys and just get the word out? Is there, you know, what social channels do you want us to promote? What are things we can do?
So I would appreciate, you know, following us on Facebook at Kreeayt. It's Kreeayt, or Instagram at Kreeayt.Art Studio. I'll also, I think the best thing we can do right now as business owners is share each other's content and let people know that there are these other great businesses around. People appreciate that. And so I try to share when I see other businesses that relate to what I do, you know, children, families, if there's something out there that would be beneficial to our audience. And I think that kind of just organic helping each other out. And I think remembering that even once we go back to business as usual or as a new normal, just to be there for our fellow business owners.
Yeah, and I think that idea of helping each other is so important right now, because it's very easy to get in a competitive mindset when you're a small business owner. and you're looking at everybody who's in the same ecosphere as you are as a competitor, but and that's true, that's true to some extent, but I think right now more than ever it's about collaborating and sharing ideas. And that's one of the things that I'm most excited about for this podcast is in my regular job I try to connect things all the time. Like if I'm working with a company that's doing supplements for gyms, I'm going to try to connect them with somebody that makes sense, a chiropractor, physical therapy business. I think this is an awesome opportunity. Hopefully I can do that for you guys and other businesses. If I talk to somebody who's in the same realm, of course you guys should connect and lean on each other and help each other.
And creative right brain thinking is really what sets us apart in a global economy, and understanding tapping into that can be so good, not just for the artistically minded.
Well, Teresa, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. It was really good to get to hear about the company and really appreciate the story.
Thank you for doing this. I think it's so great. I think it's going to open up people's eyes to a lot of businesses they didn't know were around, the struggles that people are facing, as well as what they can do to help, because really people need a call to action.